Prague's historic transit lines. Today I'm at the famous Strachov Stadium, or Stadium Strachov as it's called in Czech, with a gorgeous view of Prague in front of me and of course the stadium right behind me. If you do want to learn about the Strachov Stadium, I recommend checking out Tim Traveler's video. He does an awesome video about the history and what it looks like inside presently. But the reason why we're here at Strachov Stadium is so that we can begin our journey on 3 of Prague's historic transit lines.
Prague's transit agency, DPP, offers tourists, locals, and all others rides on historic lines. The routes themselves aren't necessarily historic, it's more so the vehicles which run on them. There is 1 bus line, Line K, and 2 tram lines, Line 41 and 42. Line K and 41 operate during specific periods of the year on weekends and holidays, while Line 42 operates every day all year round. We'll get into more detail as we ride on each of the lines.
Let's head on over to the bus stop to begin our journey with Line K.
The bus we'll be riding for Line K is numbered 4068. This is a Karosa B951E built in 2003. The B951 began production in 2001. In 2003, a variant of the vehicle was produced, denoting them as B951Es. A little more than 180 of the vehicles have been produced for various transit agencies as well as private owners, most of the vehicles running for DPP. 4068 was in regular use until it was briefly retired in 2020 to be part of DPP's historic fleet. It was returned to revenue service at the end of 2022, operating on Line 213 before the introduction of Line K in April of 2023. We'll talk more about Line K in a little bit, but what's worth noting is how I mentioned 4068 being part of DPP's historic fleet. There are a handful of old buses and trams which the agency uses for special events and the historic lines. 1 vehicle is designated on a given day on a historic line, 2 in the case of Line 42, but vehicles are rotated on different operating days. For this video, I caught the B951E for Line K. On a different day, one could catch a different bus, such as a Škoda 706 RTO. DPP has a webpage listing what vehicles operate on a given week. It's not entirely up to date, but usually one can find what vehicles are running on the same date they are on the website. Most browsers can translate the page since it is written in Czech, so I'll leave a link in the description. The historic lines are one of the few transit services in DPP's network which have their own special fares. You can buy a single ride ticket for Line K and Line 41, while on Line 42 you can only get a 24-hour ticket. However, the 24-hour ticket also gives you access to ride Line K and Line 41. And when I say 24 hours, I do mean 24 hours. So if you get your ticket, say, at 3 in the afternoon, it will be valid until 3 in the afternoon the following day. On top of that, the 24-hour ticket gives a discount to enter one of several towers in the city.
So because this is a high floor bus, it's not easily accessible for anybody with a wheelchair, because as far as I'm aware, there's no wheelchair lifts on here. However, there is still room to have a stroller, or a pram as they would call it, so it's a pretty nice feature at least.
You know how I said the historical lines are more about the historic nature of the vehicles rather than the routes? Well, Line K is an exception. Part of the route follows a formal trolleybus line, which was the first trolleybus line in Prague. However, by the 70s, Prague had got rid of all of its trolleybuses and replaced them with normal buses.
However, because climate change is a thing, and electric buses, or trolley buses I should say, are far superior than normal buses, Prague has decided to revive the old trolley bus route. Along the whole route, we see that there's a lot of new poles, like electrical poles being put up, and infrastructure for eventually the revival of the trolley bus.
There will also be trolley buses replacing a bus service that leads up to Strachov Stadium, as well as an extension of the tram network. This is evidence from some of the construction happening while on our journey. So, lots of great transit infrastructure coming to Prague not far from now. But enough about what is planned for the future, let's just admire the ride.
trip is because the bus shares stops with normal buses. There are passengers who are confused at bus stops thinking if this is their bus or not, and then the conductor goes out to ask if they're boarding or not. And of course they're all like, no, we're here for this number, and it's like, oh, no, never mind. So, quite funny.
It's understandable that there's confusion, especially when some of the old buses are colored the same as the modern ones. But this subject sort of, but not really, leads to a point about this bus ride.
The nice thing about this bus route compared to literally any other bus line in the city is because these are historic vehicles, the drivers more or less treat them better, so they drive more calmly, so to speak.
But alas, we finish our journey from the point where we began, back at Strahov.
So that was line K. It was a pretty great ride overall. I will say, despite not being able to go through the historic or touristy areas, it does make up in showcasing some of Prague's other, I guess, less visited areas. And also there is like a historic nature to riding through the first trolley bus line. So now we're gonna head over to line 41, which starts at the Transportation Museum, Staycation. But in order to do that, we actually get to ride line K one more time to get over there. So let's head back onto the bus.
As we make our way to the Transit Museum to catch line 41, we ride past the terminus of line 42, Lebowitz. The nice thing about the historic lines is how easy it is to transfer between them.
So now I'm outside of the Staycation depot, which is the home of the DPP Museum. And from here on out, the two lines that we're going to be taking are tram lines. So let's head on over to the boarding area and we'll go from there. Actually, I wanted to first go to like the main entrance area of the museum because usually they would have some vehicles laying out. It's empty. Actually, there is one tram that's out and about that is 6102, a T3, but it's not just any T3, it is the world's oldest T3. So nice to see her out. While we're waiting for our tram, why don't I talk about the depot or the museum itself. So this was a normal tram depot for the longest time, and then back in the 90s it was converted as a museum. The thing is, the museum holds only traction related vehicles, so trams, metro, and trolley buses, but it can't hold buses, and the reason why is because the structure is a wooden structure, and so the fire department or the fire brigade, since we're in Europe, wouldn't allow the buses to be held inside because, you know, it's a fire hazard. So the museum built this building. It's a new building. They started construction back in 2024, I believe, and it should be opening up at the end of 2025, and that's going to be holding the buses and some other vehicles as well.
Yeah, as of the release of this video, the new area hasn't opened yet, but should be soon.
So when that's going to open up, you'll be seeing a video from me touring both probably the old museum and the new gallery. So if it hasn't been released already, just, you know, hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified when that video comes out.
After some waiting, a tram rolled out, number 5602, aka Měsíček. Except this tram wasn't for running on line 41, so she left to make room for our actual tram, number 349. This is one of many trams built by the Ringhofer Works, with 349 being built in 1915. Most of her working career was for passenger service, but she was also transformed as a snowplow unit from 1963 until the late 80s. She was later rebuilt to her former glory to become a part of the historic fleet. Now, she's our ride for line 41. Not long after the car came out of the shed, we chugged along. For a time, we had a tram from line 42 tailing us, number 7000, but only for a bit as we split off to make our way to the planetarium.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before the new. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the Hall of Shame.
The planetarium stop is a very unique stop in the tram network, and not just because it takes you to a planetarium. The stop is only served by line 41 because it is one of the few stops where the operator changes ends to drive the vehicle, but it is the only stop where passengers can stay on board while the change happens. In the meantime, it gives a great opportunity for riders to take some nice footage of the tram without it moving. I don't know why, but the way you roll in and out of the stop feels magical, as if the tram is just swiftly gliding along the grass while surrounded by a beautiful park. But we can continue to enjoy our journey, especially these fantastic views of the city. Line 41 covers more historic areas of the city than Line K, but I wouldn't necessarily call this line a sightseeing line. That title is reserved for Line 42. I think Line 41 is the type of service transit museums offer their guests. After all, this line begins and ends at the Transit Museum. You just get the added bonus of seeing some historic parts of Prague and some amazing areas not covered by Line K or 42.
Alright, so that was line 41. Now we have to head over to, I forgot what the station name is. We're heading over to where line 42 starts, but for that we're gonna have to take normal transit.
While waiting, I got to see 4068 again, before making my way to our last historic line.
Got off at Malovanka, but have to walk a bit to Labachov, I believe that's the stop name, to get onto line 42. So line 42, like line 41, they use the Ringhofer trams, but line 42, they also have other tram types as well. And for today, they're riding this baby, the K2 tram, or I should say the Tatra K2. I screwed that up.
Ignoring my screw up, if you've seen the Prague Holiday Transit Fleet video, you'll remember the Tatra K2, car number 7000. This is an articulated tram built by Czech de Tatra from 1967 until 1983, with a total of 569 units built. While the K2 saw life in various transit agencies, including outside of modern-day Czechia and Slovakia, Prague never actually had any. Car number 7000 was originally homed in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. Built in 1977, she is the only vehicle we have ridden thus far that never worked in passenger service but as a training vehicle for upcoming tram drivers. The tram was retired in 2009 until DPP bought it from Bratislava's transit agency, DPP, in 2021 to give it a new life as part of DPP's historic fleet. Did that last sentence cause any confusion? Before boarding 7000, there's another tram that is stationed at Dlabachov, a Tatra T3 numbered 7275. This vehicle no longer operates for DPP, but is part of Tochna Dlabachov, a bar at the Dlabachov terminus. Well, Tochna actually translates as turntable or terminus, so it's quite fitting. And Dlabachov translates to mortiser, but that's besides the point. The bar is open during the warmer months and gives guests a space inside the T3 to sit and relax. It's also a great opportunity for anyone wishing they can have a seat in the cab. Plus, some of the buttons in the cab function, like opening and closing the doors. So if you wish to come ride the historic transit lines or visiting Prague in general, be sure to add Tochna Dlabachov to your itinerary. Since I was filming in October, the bar was closed, so the only thing we can do is get on board car 7000 and ride line 42. I filmed a bit less on part of the trip, only because portions of Line 42 shares the tracks with Line 41. But there is another reason, which I'll explain when we arrive at
Náměstí Republiky.
So got off at the stop Náměstí Republiky because I'm only human. I'm hungry. So I'm gonna get food at the mall here at Palladium and then take the next Line 42 to finish the trip so that we can check off all 3 lines. So without further ado, let's go get some food and then we'll get back to it.
In the meantime, let's talk about Line 42. Line 42 is what's known in the tourist industry as a hop-on, hop-off service, thanks mainly to the line running through the heart of Prague's touristy areas. Hop-on, hop-off services are typically operated by private tourist agencies which use buses. Personally, I don't like them, especially when it comes to Prague. These services tend to cost more than what they offer and are unreliable. Even though these are sightseeing vehicles, they have ridiculous routes to get tourists to their destinations. And because these are privately run buses, the vehicles are always stuck in traffic. Meanwhile, trams on Line 42 are operated by DPP, i.e. a public agency. This makes the service far more reliable since the trams have their own dedicated right-of-way throughout most of the journey. And the route is better connected and more direct with tourist destinations in the city, allowing you to get off the vehicle and explore an area you like before getting back on at ease. You can also just ride along the whole route as many times as you want and have a great sightseeing experience. Also, you get to ride a historic tram. I understand when it comes to visiting a new place, especially one where you don't know the local language, it can be difficult to navigate around and look for the interesting spots. That is what these tourist buses leech on. But if there's one thing I want every one of you watching to get out of this video, is to use public transportation instead. The combined price of the all-day historic ticket and a 72-hour all-access transit ticket in Prague is cheaper than the hop-on, hop-off bus services. With the 72-hour all-access ticket, well, it's in the name. You can ride on the majority of transit routes in the city, especially tram lines. And remember, the all-day historic ticket gives you a discount to go to one of Prague's towers if you choose to do so. The staff on board all the historic vehicles speak English and are super kind. They can help you out when it comes to visiting the city. So, when in Prague, use public transit. Now, let's continue our ride on Line 42 from Náměstí Republiky, or Republic Square. Line 42 has the benefit of running more trams than the other 2 historic lines, so the frequency is better. This time, we get to hop on a Ringhofer tram, but instead of the motor car 2210, we'll be boarding on its trailer car, number 1522. We'll talk about the trams at the end. For now, let's just enjoy the trip. A general tip when visiting Prague is to always look up when you can. You never know what you might find. As we pull up to the last stop, which is also the first stop, let's now talk about the vehicles. Trailer car 1522 was built in 1942, while her motorized counterpart was built in 1930. When 2-axle trams, such as these, ceased operations in 1974, 2210 was experimented with equipment from Tatra trams to provide tourist rides in the late 80s. The tram began running in the early 90s, only she wasn't really working well with her new parts. So the tram was overhauled in the early 2000s and was properly set for historic operations in 2004. As for 1522, the car was put to historic operations in the early 90s as well. And that's honestly all I have about the trailer car. But if you notice, the bodies of the 2 cars are rather different. Sure, one is a motor car and the other is a trailer, so naturally they aren't necessarily the same. But there is a trailer car model that matches more with our motor car 2210, and a motor car that matches with 1522. The Ringhoffer Works has changed the design of its vehicle as time progressed, both inside and out, so it's no wonder that 2210 and 1522 look quite different, considering the former was built in 1930 and the latter in 1942. Remember car 349 from earlier? She may look similar to 2210, but there are some noticeable differences between the two, especially when we recall that 349 was built in 1915. A noticeable difference is the position of the line numbers on the outside of the vehicles. The interiors also have some differences, like the ceiling design, and the hand straps. Suffice to say that not only can you look out at the fantastic views on the historic lines, but you can also absorb the vehicles you are riding in.
Finally, finished line 42. That means we finished all 3 lines. Line 42 was amazing, just as the other 2. All the information about riding these lines and all these vehicles will be linked in the description. There's also a link that tells you which vehicles operate on certain days on given lines. But you'll notice throughout the video and on the website, there was another line, line 23. That's not a historic line. That's a nostalgic line that runs kind of like a revenue service. However, that's a video on its own that'll be in the future. So if it hasn't been uploaded already, please do subscribe to stay tuned for that. Next stop